Welcome everyone to Swarmstead Bees and Garden. This is Bruce Rodriguez as usual. Tonight, my guest is Paul Dosen. Um, for anyone who hasn't seen a few of my past videos regarding Paul Dosen, a little bit of house cleaning. And I only know Paul from some emails that I got. Him and me and a few friends of mine over the past few years have gotten numerous emails from Paul. Just being honest, I'm not gonna mince words or anything. Very condescending, very kind of rude emails, but that's just the way I saw them. Um, I communicated to Paul that I didn't want to do emailing back and forth. It didn't really serve any purpose for me to spend so much time reading and responding. So I said, "Come on to the show and we can talk about it." So he said he'll come on and we're going to talk about it. I'll let him briefly introduce himself, but let me bring him in first. Uh, Here's Paul Dosen. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Bruce.
Is there anything you briefly want to tell the viewers here about yourself before we get started? Because we're about to get started.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me on your show and been watching your videos for quite a while. And I've also, obviously, as a way of introduction, have been beekeeping for quite some time now, for the last 10 years. Um, Started out back in 2012, and unfortunately, when I started out, the Vervo mite had arrived here. And as a way of for your viewers, if they don't know, I tried to go the organic route initially and tried to find out ways in order to deal with the mite organically, if you want to call it organically, or in a chemical-free or
Hold on, Paul. I don't want
treatment-free.
to. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No, no, go ahead.
it's cutting in and out a little bit.
Oh,
I didn't want the audience to not be able to hear you. It's just cutting in and out a little bit.
sure.
Um,
Uh,
I don't know if there's anything we can do about that, but we can get into all the stories of beekeeping and everything. Just briefly, like you're from Canada, right? You're from
yeah,
what's it called,
yeah,
Thunder Bay, Canada, or
yeah,
Ontario,
Ontario,
or
yeah,
something like that,
yeah.
right? I'm not familiar with that area. You've been keeping bees 10 years.
Winters
Um,
here are extremely long, six
you
months.
kind of touted yourself as the hmm?
No, sorry, I was just saying
Okay.
that our winters here
You
are
tout
extremely
yourself
long.
as the a formidable opponent of treatment-free beekeeping and one of its most vociferous opponents. Really, I don't know why, but if we could, get into that, then we can talk a little bit about basically Paul's story. I mean, just in case it's a little easier to hear on my side, he tried to start out not treating. His bees died, and then I guess you went right to treating right after that, right?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much right after that. There was a few years where the person that I got my bees from didn't have the mite. He was in a kind of a geographic area of Thunder Bay here that didn't get the mite right away. And I was able to kind of bypass treating because obviously they didn't have the mites from him. And then a few years after the mite arrived here, I had them as well. And unfortunately, yeah, they succumbed to mites because I didn't do anything to take care of them. So, and then I learned rather quickly that that was my only option, at least here, anyways. I know in Pennsylvania, there's probably tons and tons of swarms that you can catch. So even if you decide not to be a treatment or a treating beekeeper, you could still maintain a good population via just by catching swarms, as I understand that Jason
All right,
Bruns,
well,
I
let's slow
believe.
down. Slow down. We got to slow down.
No,
I got to
yeah,
slow down with Paul because
sorry.
sometimes Paul will, just being honest, he'll go on a long monologue and somehow throw a question in there, and I'm not going to let him do that tonight. So you said your bees died.
Okay,
How many colonies did you have in your first year that switched you over? How many did you have?
a couple. Yeah, I was just a small
So
sideliner, right? So I
you had
mean,
two colonies.
two. Yeah,
You had two colonies. They were not. They had no resistance whatsoever because your area never had mites before, and then they died. What's surprising about that? Looking back,
looking back, I suppose nothing would be surprising about that. But even the people that are breeding mite-resistant stock here in Ontario, down at the University of Guelph, they let their bees, I mean, not all their bees, obviously, but they let them go to mites, and they pass or they succumb about 2 or 3 years after not being treated. It's a regular thing here, at least in Ontario anyways. 2 or 3 years without any mite treatment at all results in a dead hive.
Okay. So let me. Yeah, your audio is really cutting out. It's making it very hard to really follow along. But to paraphrase, you said something that I've heard thousands of times by people, that to keep a colony, you don't treat it. 2 or 3 years later, it dies. Right?
Yeah.
That's your assertion right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in 2 to 3 years, how many colonies can an experienced beekeeper make out of one colony?
Oh, not sure.
I
Not
mean,
sure.
let's just throw out a number. I have a booming colony coming out of sprint. Start with a booming colony, split it into two or three. The next year, split those three into 6 or 8. And then, which one are you talking about dies 3 years later? Which one are you talking about? The first one, or who are you? What colony dies 3 years later without mite treatment? Or are you saying they all die?
Yeah. Well, the studies that were done, not only here in Canada, but well, in your country and in Europe, all the treatment-free studies that were done proved that in 2 or 3 years that all the colonies died, every single one in the study. As
And
far as
that
I'm
audio just
aware,
keeps
anyways.
breaking
And
up.
that's. Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce. Uh, I'm not sure
So
where my mic is on
so you're
this
going by
laptop.
some studies that you read. What study are you talking about? Do you have any studies by name or reference that my audience can look up?
Uh, well, they're all old, but I mean, the one that comes to mind is a Jen Berry study that was done back in 2009. I don't know if it was one of the first ones, but I know that she was very adamant talking about treatment-free beekeeping, and actually she was doing quite a bit of work on small cell foundation, right? She got all her bees from a small cell beekeeper, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the article right in front of me, but it's on one of my computers here. And she wanted nothing more than to have an organic,
Okay.
treatment-free, chemical-free approach to dealing with Varroa. Now, again, the study was done in 2009, and Varroa, as I understand it, came to the States back in the late 80s. So that was like 20
Okay.
years
Okay. So
after.
let's go with that. Let's go
Mhm.
with that. 2009. So we're talking about 14 years ago, even before I even started keeping bees, but way before you started keeping bees.
Yep.
So Jennifer Berry's not a treatment-free beekeeper that I know of. She's a queen breeder. Um, you know, that still doesn't answer the question. Yeah, if I have a stationary colony, the chances of anyone keeping a stationary singular colony all by itself alive for 3 years, whether they treat or not, is pretty slim. Like, how many backyard beekeepers that have one colony and they overwinter them 3 years in a row without them dying? What's the difference there? I don't see what the problem is.
I don't know. I kept colonies, a few of them, in my overwintering room here for 7 years, and I didn't lose a single one. Uh, when I was treating, of course, I was using Apivar and oxalic acid. Mind you, I guess you could say that I requeened them, which I did, because in some cases I had queen failure, and I was able to detect it relatively quickly in the spring or throughout the summer season, and I popped a new queen in there, or I allowed them to raise their own queen. So technically, I suppose I changed the hive when I changed the queen, but I was
Yeah, you
successful for
killed the colony.
for
When you
oh,
requeen a colony, you killed that colony. You killed that whole line. I mean, when you swap a queen, your queen failed. Who knows if it was from your own treatments? You kept them alive. I guess that's fine. Can I ask you, with the varroa mite problem as you see it, what are you doing as a beekeeper to work towards not having to treat? Like, what are you doing?
like as in terms of selective breeding, like that kind of stuff. No, I'm not.
You
I'm not a
you're
queen
doing
breeder.
that?
No, I'm sorry.
You're selective breeding for mite resistance in your apiary?
No, I'm not. No, I never said I was a queen breeder. No, I just buy.
Okay, well, yeah, you don't have to be a queen. I'm not a queen breeder.
So, what traits are you looking for in order to select for mite resistance?
Well, see,
I'm
I've
not
answered
entirely.
that. Okay, so here we go. So let's go. Let's go with this. Here's one of Paul's questions where if you're not familiar with kind of these little weird loaded trapped questions, you might fall for them. But the question is, what traits am I looking for toward mite resistance, right? And I already answered this before, but I'll answer it again. I select for survival, which is the easiest possible thing to select for. It's so easy.
What
And
does
that
that
is
mean,
the bees
survival?
have to
What
they
does
have
that
to
mean,
survive. They
survival?
have to live without being treated.
So, the ones that are surviving in your apiary, how do you know that they're
You know what
surviving?
survival. I mean, you're in a position of arguing against selection, which I do not envy at all. It's a tough spot to be in, but I want to just hear what do you mean? What do you mean that you don't understand what survival means?
So, you're saying that the colonies in your apiary that survive a winter are the ones that you obviously breed from. Am I understanding you correctly?
Uh,
Without having any
some of my
criteria.
colonies are from a line that goes back since not long after you started beekeeping. So, but let's say the ones here, I have some from 2017, 2016, unbroken maternal line. They've survived every year, not being treated. That's what survival is. Do queens, of course, reproduce? So, colonies reproduce and swarm, and I make splits. So, in a way, I do produce some queens, but I'm not a bulk queen breeder. But I don't know what the relevance of that is.
Mhm. So why can't anyone do what you do and come out on top? These treatments, not only treatments, but all this work and effort into producing a mite-resistant line that,
So you keep
quote
saying
unquote.
that. You keep saying that. Why do you keep saying that? That every person who keeps bees treatment free has to produce a mite resistant line. Like every single bee, we don't have to do that. Oh, I've never asserted that I have mite resistant bees. You keep asking that same question. I've never asserted that. I will assert that I have bees that have a good chance of survival, a much higher chance of survival without treatments than say some bees that came off of your yard, where they're coddled their whole existence. They're constantly on life support. Would you say that's true?
I suppose. I suppose.
Okay. So anybody can be a treatment free beekeeper if they want to. Um, Here's the thing. Once I do catch a lot of swarms. You're right about that.
Hmm.
I do removals. Anybody can be a treatment free beekeeper if they want to put the effort into it. The only reason you treat bees, you or anyone, is to preserve your investment. That's what it is. I don't have an investment. All my bees are free. They always have been, except for the first colony I ever bought in 2010. The very first, that's the only money I've ever spent on bees in 2010. And I've
Hmm.
had hundreds and hundreds of colonies every year. So what part of that do you have a problem with, and why? Why do you have a problem with people living their life the way they want their bees? What's the Sorry, this damn camera, this
That's okay.
Wi-Fi keeps cutting out.
No, I think mine is cutting out too. If I'm
It
not,
just keeps twirling. It's so annoying.
should I move my computer? Does that make any difference?
I mean, you sound a
I'm at
little
the
better
70.
now. It's happening here too. I don't know, but okay. So why are you so such a formidable opponent to people doing what they want to do?
I wouldn't. I'm just trying to find out the
Yeah, that
rationality.
question. You don't like that question. I know, because that's what you gave to me. See how I did that to you? It's a loaded question, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Um, yeah, no, like I said, the rationality behind it all is what I'm trying to figure out. If it was so easy just to allow your colonies to kind of get on with it, if it were like they did on the island of Gotland, of the eastern coast of Sweden, they ran a treatment-free experiment for 10 years. The researchers went back, and out of all the colonies that were there, they put over 100 colonies on that island. And guess how many survived? Just one lonely, pathetic-looking colony. Meaning that there's no point in doing it. I don't see any point in allowing your livestock to perish from a parasite that could be totally. Oh, sorry, were you trying to say something?
What's that study called? Who's the researcher in charge of that study? Because if it's the one I'm thinking of, you have a very different understanding than I'm talking about. But what's the name of that researcher? Remember Eric something?
I'm not sure of the name offhand. I'm not sure of the name offhand, actually.
So let me see if I'm sorry that the video keeps cutting in and out, the audio keeps cutting out. You're saying they put 100 colonies on an island, and at the end of it, there
Yes,
was one left.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it,
Um,
it didn't work out well at all.
that sounds very, very familiar to the Robin Underwood study, where they had a large number of colonies and then a small number left.
It was something like
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, uh, I've gone over all the problems that I have with the Robin Underwood study. I don't know how that other study was done. I don't know what kind of bees they started with. Did they just start with a bunch of commercial packages? They're basically just starting just like you did with a bunch of bees with no resistance. That's totally it's something I would expect. But the thing is, you could cite as many studies as you want to done by treating beekeepers, not really knowing what their intentions were. But none of that will change the fact that myself and hundreds of people that I know do this, and they do it like just like this winter, my survival rate is going to be probably between 60 and 70% this winter, which is
Hmm.
lower than usual. But I've been doing this will be my 14th season now. I've never had results like these studies that you talk of. So it's really irrelevant, to me. I'm never going to treat bees. You're never going to not treat your bees. So I still don't understand like what the problem is. You're never going to change anyone's mind. Um, I'm not going to change many people's minds, and I can live with that. But you tell me why you think that bees can't, like every other living organism on Earth, can evolve and adapt and overcome things, but you don't give that same uh, opportunity to honeybees of all things.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and like you were saying, a lot of things can overcome things with evolutionary time. I think, as I mentioned in one of my emails, time. It's only been 30 years since Varroa has been here. What does that mean in evolutionary time? How long is that in evolutionary time? It's
You're
not
talking
about.
about it's not long in evolutionary time,
No.
but not all things, not all adaptations take thousands and thousands of years. It takes evolutionary time to change from one species to another. So if you would go back to when honeybees all started as the same species somewhere in Africa, and then they branched off into what are now Asian honeybees, what are now scutellata, what are now European honeybees, they all were a common ancestor. So that kind of change does take evolutionary time. Simply evolving to something like, say, tracheal mites or hive beetles, they they haven't been here very long. And what do you do for tracheal mites in your hives?
Me, nothing personally.
Why? They've only been around for not that long. They wiped out tons of honeybees. But what do you think happened?
We had a honeybee that was able to resist it. We
Wow.
currently we currently do not have a honeybee able to resist Varroa.
Okay, but what about hive beetles? When hive beetles first came to the United States, in I think it was in the 1990s, they also wiped out yards, giant yards of bees, wiped them out. Look up the old videos. The very blurry old videos of these
Mhm.
beekeepers just getting all their colonies slimed. Now people still think hive beetles are a problem, but they're new beekeepers. They don't know anything about how it was when they first got here. I personally do nothing for hive beetles, just like anything else.
Do
Even
you
though I
have
do
hive
have,
beetles currently? Do you
hmm?
have them?
Oh yeah, I have
Yeah.
tons of them. I have thousands of them in colonies, but they don't kill my bees. They've also been here less time than the varroa mite. So the evolutionary time argument is not going to work. It holds no water at all. The tracheal mite and hive beetle are just two examples of things that bees can live with and do. And they also wiped out tons of bees when they first showed up. So what's next?
Yeah, I know the tracheal mite was definitely damaging in the mid 80s. I mean, I saw research papers and saw YouTube videos of people talking about him here, and I have, several researchers out west who were talking about them. And yeah, uh, definitely here in Ontario, still we're selecting for tracheal mite resistance in our stock. I'm not sure if they're doing that in Alberta, but we're definitely doing it here. At least uh, not anyone here specifically in Thunder Bay, as far as I'm aware, but the University of Guelph, as I said, where we're obtaining this mite-resistant stock from, they're still selecting for tracheal mite resistance in their stock, even today. And even in some of the treatments that we're using against Varroa now, formic acid, oxalic acid, amitraz, are all effective against tracheal mites as well.
How do you support that? Where can I find that information? Because I don't know that to be true.
You just look it up online and you'll find out. I'm not going to spoon feed any information, but you're more than welcome to find out by just simply doing a Google search online. You'll find that out
Yeah,
no
it's
problem.
just not here. Here in the United States, we pay absolutely zero mind to tracheal mites. No one pays any mind to tracheal mites. The only people who would is if, say, it's a new beekeeper who got a hold of some old books and thought for some reason tracheal mites were still a thing. Then they would start doing the peppermint in the grease patties and all that weird shit they used to do years ago to try to get rid of tracheal mites. And the bees went ahead and selected on their own. So the bees here, just like you're saying, a colony may come up out of the gene pool occasionally that cannot handle tracheal mites and will die, and they'll select themselves.
Hmm.
Um, Same thing with mites. Some bees on my yard are absolutely going to die. Many of the uh, deaths on my yard are from mites dying. I mean,
Yeah.
mites killing the bees, and that's totally fine with me because I have plenty left that that they had almost no effect on that I can tell. I mean, they look exactly today like they did in the summer, on a warm day. They're absolutely exploding and booming. Those are the ones that I'm going to propagate. It's just simple selection. I don't see what the problem is. Why anyone would have a problem with that?
Yeah. Well, like I said, here in Ontario, we tried going the treatment free, or not, I mean, not we, but like I said, researchers down at the University of Guelph, they did all the experiments and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, they tried allowing just pure natural selection to take place in their yards, and they couldn't achieve the mite resistance that the treatment free beekeepers claim to have achieved. We don't have, in Canada here at least, anyways, as far as I could tell, as many treatment free beekeepers as down in the States. Um, I'm not sure why that is, if it's because of our harsh winters up here or something like that, but we don't have, or at least they're not as vocal, as many treatment free beekeepers up here as you guys have down there. And then I know that a lot of treatment-free beekeepers, Texas and Arizona, places where they have the Africanized genetics, they do really well with Varroa. But as far as European stock is concerned, unless you're talking about the Russian stock, which Kirk Webster, I think he uses up in Vermont, they've also proven to be mite resistant. But aside from those, yeah, I mean, good luck trying to keep your bees alive without treatments, at least up here anyways. Like I said, I can't comment for anyone down there. Maybe climatic changes have things to do with it, harsh winter conditions. I'm not sure. But here
Well,
up,
it's let me.
no,
It's
go
funny
ahead.
that you say Africanized bees. I did do an interview with a South African beekeeper who was keeping bees when mites arrived in South Africa. They were not always there, like they weren't there. So, in case you didn't know, mites wiped out a ton of bees in Africa, wiped them out like crazy.
Yeah,
But
30% roughly. Eh?
okay, so well, if that's what you say, the person who actually lives there told me it was much higher than that, but
Oh,
they decided they weren't going to treat, like they just didn't treat at all. Today, nobody treats in that area. So why Africanized bees from the actual country got not wiped out, but had a nice mortality because of these mites. And here sometimes people think, oh, they're going to do better because they're Africanized bees. I don't see any support for that. Like, no, what's the support there for that?
yeah,
I just don't want these claims to just be thrown out into the air. Just claims, just kind of regurgitating these things that people say. Like, what? Back it up a little bit. Like, I talked to the people from there. Their bees died. A ton of their bees died in Africa,
mhm.
South Africa. Here, I don't know. Do you know people who keep Africanized bees here on purpose?
No, no, I mean, no. Aside from D. Lusby, I think she keeps them. I mean, I don't know. She has several yards throughout Arizona that some say are totally abandoned. So, I mean, they kind of keep themselves in her colonies, I guess. But she was the only one that comes to mind that I know or heard of keeping Africanized stock down in Arizona. I'm not sure if anyone else does, but she's the only
Yeah,
person
I
that
don't
comes
know,
to mind.
but I can
Do you know D?
tell you that I don't have any Africanized bees. I can tell you Kirk Webster doesn't have any Africanized bees. Um, most
No,
people
they're
I
they're
know,
not they're not in Pennsylvania, right?
I mean,
Africanized.
maybe they might get here once in a while in a package or in a nuke or something, but from what I've heard, they won't survive the winter time. They don't. They're missing something that lets them survive cold weather.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I heard that
but
too.
just any of those arguments that, yeah, my bees are actual survivor bees. I sell a ton of bees. I don't have very many return customers. It's not because their bees died. It's because they actually call me and say, my bees survived. I didn't treat my bees that I got from you. They're doing fine. How do I do a split? This is a very
Mhm,
common call that I get every year by many people. Um, just by selecting from the best. And the best is the bees that survive without treatments. And that's not really an opinion. That's selection. That's just pure selection. Um,
mhm.
is there anything else? I mean, in the trying to think of things in emails, you had these questions, what were the, okay, here we go. What were the answers that you got from, say, Michael Bush, whoever these other people you emailed? You said they gave you bad answers to questions. What were the questions? What were the answers?
Uh, well, yeah, I mean, Michael Bush is the one that I actually, well, yeah, I befriended him about 10 years ago when I got into beekeeping, obviously, and yeah, he's still a personal friend of mine. I have nothing against Michael Bush at all. Uh, what kind of? Well, he was. He didn't come to beekeeping with a kind of a natural selection approach like you and Solomon do. I mean, he definitely talks about natural selection in his presentations, but he was an extreme advocate of small cell, which I was trying to get people to use it here when the Varroa mite arrived, and when these people came up from Southern Ontario to do lectures on how to handle Varroa mites, I was advocating for the use of small cell foundation as a, like I said, a chemical free approach to handling Varroa, because as far as the literature that Michael sent me was concerned, it involved the male survivorship issue, right? I mean, the bee expands in the cell to a point where the male mite gets trapped on the opposite side of the pupa, the female's on the other side, and they can't come together to mate. And as a result, she comes out kind of unmated, right? So there's no progeny in that cell. She just comes out, and obviously the male dies, and she comes out alone. And in that respect, it was at least to my understanding anyway, that was a viable option if you wanted to go the chemical free route, just to pop this foundation in your colonies and your mite problems would be over. And then obviously I started doing a bunch of research, and it just snowballed from there as in terms of efficacy. And obviously there was tons and tons of research done on small cell which proved the exact opposite. So, and the people that came up from Southern Ontario that I was speaking to here, they said it's all been disproven. So then I just left it alone. Aside from, yeah, go ahead.
Let me just get too far. Let me come back on camera.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on or if you can hear.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up, but I can kind of hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, we're having serious issues tonight.
That's okay. I got more time than money, so. You still there, Bruce?
All right, you still there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah, we got kicked off for a minute there. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Hello, Moto.
Not my stupid phone. That was my phone. Hello, Moto. Sound annoying, but all right. So we were talking about small cell. You know, this always sidetracks everybody. This small cell, this and that. It was a weird idea. I guess that was several. They were saying small cell. First of all, there's no such thing as small cells. I've talked about this before. There's the size of cells that bees make, and then there's the artificial size cells that are printed on the foundation that you probably use and that everybody uses. The cell size that's printed on foundation is large. That doesn't make the normal small. They're just normal and then large. So their assertion then was that the bees being on their normal size, which is small in comparison to this now large size, somehow helped your bees fight mites or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is, if you have crappy bees from some that are just totally non-resistant garbage junk that you get from most bee sellers, no size of a cell is going to save your bees. It's not going to do anything. I would agree with anyone on that. I agree with that. Now, for my own yard, I do like to let my bees build their own comb as much as they possibly can, and their cells are small. They're way smaller than any foundation you can have. They're 4.9 millimeters is considered small, even though that's just normal. And a lot of mine are 4.6 and 4.55, all the way up to 4.9. Barely any of them are above 5 millimeters. None of that matters because they still die if they're on small or whatever cell they're on. That doesn't matter. That's just it's a tangent. I'm not going to support that small cell saves your bees. If it did, I would consider it a treatment, so I wouldn't do it. So I still like. What was these people's answers to what trait are they selecting for? Remember that question? What trait are you selecting for to whatever it was?
Yeah, you're talking about Michael Bush, what he was selecting for, or these people that are down in southern
Anybody.
Ontario?
I want to hear what these. You kept telling me that these people never had answers to your questions, and I didn't understand why, because they're very easy to answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yeah. When I was asking Michael Bush questions, for example, it was, and then obviously when we were getting into the nitty gritty of the small cell stuff, and then obviously he kept moving those goalposts. Oh, they didn't use enough drone comb. They had bees that were inferior, and then it had to be your queen,
Hold
or it
on,
had to be.
hold on a second.
Sorry,
There's-
maybe it's my arm that's in the way. I don't know.
Are you able to hear me?
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually,
All
a
right.
little bit better now than before.
Yeah, I switched over to my phone because I don't know what the heck's up with my laptop, but yes, I'm kind of in a, but anyway, okay, so now you can hear me. All
Yeah,
right.
and you can hear
I'm
me.
just gonna, yeah, I'm gonna shut this computer down because it isn't helping me at all. Shut
Are you
that
on
down.
Wi-Fi on your phone? I don't want to be taking up your data.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I'm on Wi-Fi.
Okay.
All right, so you can go ahead and tell me what these other beekeepers were saying.
Oh no, they were talking about. Well, like I was saying, if small cell wasn't working, and any of the studies that it didn't work, Michael was saying, well, they didn't use enough drone comb, or their stock was inferior, or the queens were no good. And it was always some type of excuse as in terms of why the small cell wasn't working. And then if it wasn't small cell, then it was poor genetics. Well, Michael said, well, he said genetics are nice, but small cell is a cure. So then I listened to Solomon, and he was saying, well, natural selection is the cure. So it really confused the heck out of me as in terms of which person do I believe when I listen to the treaters, or not the treaters, but the people that are giving advice on keeping healthy colonies. It's pretty consistent as in terms of what you need to or should do. I admit that the labeling on the products, can be inferred in a confusing manner. You can kind of confuse the instructions on, say, the package of Aprivar or Formic. But you ask, some questions. You can inquire about that, and people will gladly direct you as in terms of what you have to do. And as long as you keep the mite population below 1%, you're good to go.
Yeah, we're going off topic here again.
Sorry.
This is a treat. I mean, I'm a treating free beekeeper. This channel is I'll talk about many things, but just to keep it, kind of in line. I'm trying to be nice, but I could give a shit about the directions on Apivar or what. I don't give a shit about that.
Okay.
I want to know what is the problem with beekeepers like me removing problem bees from areas, keeping them without treatments, and actually taking a step forward to having bees that can survive without treatments, because I've never treated bees ever, and I never will.
Well, you have a lot of swarms in your areas. So I mean, yeah, obviously you can afford not to treat them and still be pretty rich with bees, due to the fact that a lot of people around you are probably treating. So as a result, you're benefiting from those that are treating for Varroa.
Well, you'd have to take my word, but I can tell you that probably upwards of 80% of the
swarms that I go collect and that I find the parent colony like within 50 feet or 50 yards, they're all coming out of feral cavities where they've been for a while, out of buildings, out of trees, out of all kinds of things. Sometimes they do come from a beekeeper, but that also really doesn't matter though. If you just want to keep bees because you enjoy it, you want to have some honey, there's no reason, in my opinion, to prop up, prop up weak bees and just make it worse. But you are right. I do catch a lot of swarms. I don't know if anyone. You could ask 100 people in my area if there's a lot of swarms. They're all going to tell you no. They'll tell you they've never seen one. There's many beekeepers in my area who have never caught a swarm, who they just don't. I just happen to be really good at getting the calls because I put my name out there everywhere. I set traps. I know I've been doing it for a while. I know a lot of people. It may look from when you watch my channel or whatever, you might think, oh, this guy's in a swarm heaven, but no, it's because I travel like within an hour radius all the way around my area. So yeah, I caught 80 swarms last year, but they weren't all in my backyard. They were all over the place. And I think anybody can do that. It doesn't matter where you're at. You may not catch as many as me, but maybe not in Canada, because you guys don't really have the environment to where there can be feral colonies.
No,
there just really isn't. But that's just because of where you live. That has nothing to do with what we can do down here. Or if you wanted to, maybe you could overwinter in like some barns or whatever, how they do up there. I don't know, but
no, like I said, I have an overwintering room. That's where I keep them in. I tried to keep them outside, but I didn't have very good success with keeping them over the winter outside here. We got like minus 40 Fahrenheit here. So during the winter time, and it's really cold. And I mean, I know that cold doesn't kill bees, but I mean, at least that's what I was told. But I've noticed that bees really struggle during cold months out of the year, especially February when the queens are trying to brood up and they're using a lot of resources. And if it's cold, they can't move to stores. So they end up perishing because A, they're trying to brood up, and B, they get stuck in a corner of the hive or in a frame. And if a frame is, full of honey next to them, they have trouble moving over. And I mean, I did overwinter outside for a number of years, or a couple anyways, before I moved them inside. And I know lots of people that overwintered outside here. And on average, their losses, even before mites, were over 70%. That was average here. I mean,
you said over 70%?
Over 70% without without Varroa. So I mean, imagine the stress without Varroa. Now put Varroa on top. The winters here are really harsh. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I get that, but the one thing you said I want to revisit there, you said that there's a lot of swarms in my area. Well, I'm in Pennsylvania, which is not nowhere near as cold as Canada, but anything south of me, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee, all those states, they're way warmer than here. There's way more beekeeping population in those states, California. I can't think of many places in the United States where somebody couldn't catch a ton of swarms or do removals. There's people catching them in numbers in every corner of this country that I can think of. And I know people just from being on here and on Facebook, there's people spread out all over the country that catch a bunch of swarms. I just want to make clear that I'm not in some special bee, nirvana where I walk out and I'm tripping over swarms of bees all the time. And if you guys had 70% mortality before varroa mites, what is it now?
I'm not. Well, I mean, now they've. I'm not entirely sure. A lot of people here do overwinter outside, but they've. Some beekeepers have switched to polystyrene hives, and they claim that helped. I mean, just last year, a good friend of mine who had no issues with varroa. I mean, she cleaned them up good in September, October, and she's been a beekeeper since the mid 90s. And I mean, so I mean, she's gotten a handle on varroa, But I mean, she came out with 70%. She had 3 colonies and lost 2. And I mean now lots of beekeepers that come to meetings, especially in the spring, are complaining about high losses, and the ones that are having 5% losses or less are overwintering indoors. So that's kind of how the game is played here. You got so yeah. I mean, in order to have success, it seems like you got to have your bees inside, and if you don't, then you got to really make sure that you're on top of your feeding. I mean, I know some beekeepers now that are popping the lids of colonies and putting down fondant. That's something new now that beekeepers are trying, and I mean it's really proven successful. They kind of take it down quickly, and and even if your colony kind of is on the verge of starvation, the fondant really helps. So that's what we're trying to do now in order to alleviate the losses that would otherwise happen if we didn't stay on top of things. But yeah, it's really difficult here to keep your bees alive.
All right. I mean,
and
I
nukes are
get it.
expensive. Yeah, it's
But-
like $200 a nuke.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know what to say to that. I mean, I don't pretend to advise people in Canada what to do because they don't have. I don't know what Canada's like. I've never been there, but maybe on the very southern part there could be some overwintering and feral colonies somewhere, possibly. I don't know, but I know that I don't know if there's a state in the United States where bees can't overwinter inside of something. Maybe like Nebraska or Alaska. Of course Alaska they can't. But the thing I'm just trying to stay on focus here is, like, me and you and I, we communicated in emails. You said to be ready. You're gonna have some stuff for me, some unanswerable questions, some gotchas about treatment-free beekeeping. You're gonna zing me with some stuff. I'm still waiting for the sting. Lord, where is the sting, or however the hell that goes? Where, like, what do you have? I keep a ton of bees. I mean, for me as a hobbyist, I keep as many as I want to. I can never get below. I can never get down to the number that I really want to keep bees at. I never treat. I sell as many as I possibly can, and I still get stuck with, 75, 80, 100 over winter time. And that's just removing bees that are where they're not supposed to be. I mean, what is wrong with that? Like, you seem to have some problems with it, and I'm here. I'm trying to, like, answer your questions, and I don't want to end this live and then you email me with a bunch of stuff that I didn't say or that you didn't say, and try to backdoor me with some stuff that. So I want it all to come out. What's the problem? I mean, you should appreciate what I'm doing, what treatment-free beekeepers are doing. We're letting the weak die off. Okay, so is that your problem? Is it because you feel sorry for the bees? Is there a sympathy that you have for bees like you would for a kitten or something like that?
Oh, you mean like a moral imperative type thing?
Right.
No, I mean, not really. I mean, I love bees. I'm fascinated by them, definitely. And I'm a firm believer in keeping your bees healthy and productive.
Why productive? What? I don't understand. I love. That's something that I hear a lot. Oh, everybody just wants to keep healthy bees. Are they really healthy if you're the one keeping them healthy? And why the production? Like, if you love bees, wouldn't you keep them whether they produce honey or not? I would, because I love messing with bees. I would keep a hornet's nest. I would keep ant farms. They don't make anything for me.
No,
I keep a dog. I have a cat. They don't produce anything for me because I love them. I grow things that don't produce fruit. I love flowers. Would you not keep bees if they didn't produce honey for you?
sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, definitely. I have, like, mason bee condos. They don't produce anything either. Bumblebees. I have nests kind of all over the place here. Thunder Bay seems to be a very rich place for bumblebees. They seem to do very well here. But yeah, I love bumblebees.
You don't treat them though, right? I mean, you don't find
not.
bumblebee nests to make sure that they don't have any parasites in them or anything, right?
No, I don't throw in an apivar stick in a bumblebee colony. That's for sure.
Why not? Why not?
Well, maybe I should. No, well, yeah, they're managing on their own, definitely. And I mean,
Okay, but they do have problems, right? Because I've had bumblebee colonies. I have them many times, and you know what kills them? Wax moths kill them many times. I've removed bumblebee colonies. A couple weeks later, they had wax moths eating them up. Some of them, they have nests in things that I have here, in bird houses and little boxes, and they get killed. Something kills them. I don't know what it is, a mold, something. So they are getting killed by things, but there's the ones that aren't getting killed that are hopefully furthering the species after that. So another thing that you said was um, it's my duty to keep my bees healthy, like you said, healthy and productive, because I take on the responsibility of the. It's like this moral kind of thing you kind of imposed on me over an email. What do you mean by that?
No, well, I firmly believe in that if you're going to keep a livestock like bees, I know they're not treatment-free beekeepers don't necessarily consider them as livestock, but they are classified as livestock. So if you're going to keep livestock, then why wouldn't you want to keep it as healthy as you possibly could?
Okay.
I don't understand that.
Okay, well, here's why. Many things are considered livestock. If you keep goats, cows, whatever, sheep, you would not, part of your plan of keeping them things would not be to propagate from bad genetics. If you have a lamb with sheep with extra legs, or a cow that has a bad heart or whatever, you don't propagate those things. How is that different from what I'm doing? I'm not propagating from bees that require a constant life support all the time. I don't see a problem with that. And also, I would turn that statement around and say, as a keeper of bees, it's your responsibility. Of course, I don't really mean this, but I could just say it's your responsibility to select for bees that can survive without treatments and that are therefore healthier and more robust and resistant to whatever comes at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And if we had such a bee that was resistant to mites, we'd be on top of that. Nobody would ever stick an apivar strip into a colony if that's all they had to do is find a mite-resistant feral colony.
Yeah, there will never be a 100% mite-resistant colony of bees. There's bees that will survive, and I think you focusing on mites so much all the time is just leaving wide open the door for any other type of parasite or pathogen or something to just wipe the bees out. You keep focusing on this mite all the time, whereas I'm not focusing on anything. I let everything try to kill my bees so that the ones that survive are the best, and that's what's left. But man, I just can't get in your mind there where you just like you jump out of bed at night and screaming Varroa mites or Varroa destructor. I just can't get behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I do plenty of talks here in Thunder Bay, and definitely I encourage people to manage and control Varroa. Now, maybe I shouldn't, but I do because I do, and I mean, I definitely feel that it works. Those times that I haven't done it, they perished. But again, if I were to try doing that with the stock that we have up here now, the researchers down in Ontario, Southern Ontario, that breed them are not even promoting or encouraging people to not do anything for Varroa. They're the ones that are encouraging that we treat, well, because they're the researchers and the professors and the academics that are in charge of all that kind of stuff. Now, I know that there's a backdoor conspiracy in regards to that too, that they're only there to kind of, grab money from us, and not only that, but in a way to encourage us to, buy the treatments so that we can encourage the companies making them to continue making them, obviously to continue making more money making them. So obviously there's a conspiracy held by some treatment-free beekeepers down in Texas. I know that Natalie B, who's one of the people there on the Hive Jive, she is actually working together with John Swan, who's a not bee inspector down there, but he is a master beekeeper, and I enjoyed listening to their podcast. Him and Ken Milam. He was a new beekeeper, and John was giving him advice. Do you know that podcast that I'm talking about?
Yeah, I was on it a couple weeks ago.
Oh, as a guest?
Yep.
Oh, well, I have a few Hive Drive podcasts pending on my phone here, so maybe I'll grab that one. Okay.
Oh, so let me plug my phone in here real quick. It's dying.
So the people that are breeding these mite-resistant bees.
So you keep saying that. You keep saying mite-resistant bee. Sorry. I don't know why it's not. I don't claim to have a mite-resistant bee. I wouldn't even claim to have a 100% survival bee. I would just say that the bees that I have been selected over a long time and are the result of zero treatments over, several years, same lines for a long time. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. And also I would really, you said you would love this mite resistant bee. Do you know, so would you expect a mite resistant bee to just not, a colony of mite resistant bees to just not die? Like what would kill them?
Yeah, well, I guess it wouldn't be Varroa or.
Okay. So let's say we snap their fingers, all the Varroa mites in Canada and the United States disappeared. So let's do a little magic trick. They disappear. Whether you had mite-resistant bees or not, do you think bees would stop dying? They would be.
No, just less would die. A lot less.
So, a lot less. So you're saying that with treating, there's some people getting 95% alive bees. While the rest of the country is getting 70% mortality. So let's say everybody gets 95%. I can't call them survivors because they didn't survive anything. They're just alive. So let's say the whole country of Canada and the United States experiences 95% alive bees. How many years could we last with that kind of survival before we're just up to our necks in bees?
No.
What will we do with all those bees?
What did we do before? I have no idea.
Yeah, because there never was that time. There was not a time where 95% of bees survived every year. That time is imaginary. But now I'm asking you, what will we do with that?
What would we do with all those bees that were surviving?
Yeah, because nobody would need to buy bees if they kept, no matter how many colonies they kept. Let's say they kept 5. The chance of them losing one is very slim because they would have to keep 100 colonies just to lose 5. So then now the spring happens and now they have to split. But what are they gonna do with all those bees? Because everybody else's bees also lived. So now what happens?
Yeah, no one's buying them anymore because there's no need to buy them, I guess, because all of them are surviving.
Well, they're alive. I mean, they're not. So can you see how that would just break down in just one season? Like it just would not work. This silly goal of 90-something%, because of a mite resistant, super powerful, indestructible bee. Because of that goal, it's like you got to be careful what you're even wishing for, because if you get it, then what happens? I mean, what would happen to almond pollination? That's kind of a big deal here. Where they ship 95% of all the colonies in the country go to almonds. That's how small of a chunk of beekeeping like hobbyists are, like me and you. What would happen if 95% survived? They don't have that. I mean, these commercial beekeepers don't have 95% survival.
No.
Or alive bees. But you see the problem that quickly runs into. So what amount of mortality is good for you?
0.
Oh, so you don't even want 95% of bees to live. You want 100% of them to live.
Yeah.
That's a problem, Paul. I'm like, what the hell do you do with all that?
I got no idea. If not a single person in the world died from cancer, I'd be happy.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a whole other conversation, but and actually something I was thinking about recently. What would we do with if all human mortality was just solved, like all hunger, all cancer, all drunk driving, all drugs, all heart disease? You're talking about we're going to be
There'd be
standing on top of each other, but
there'd be a
that's a
lot of
whole different.
people. There'd be a lot of people.
Um,
Maybe even too much. I don't know.
yeah. So yeah, you gotta accept that some bees are going to die, and that's how it's always been. People are just getting into this, like you and me. We're seeing we're not seeing how it was a long time ago, and people can try to tell us, but most of those people haven't been doing it. Then all those old beekeepers are practically dead. Um, Almost all of them. Is there anything else you can think of? I thought you'd have like a whole list of things to
No,
get
I
me
didn't.
scratching my head. I don't have anything. Your last comment on my video was something to the effect of, "I gave you all these questions and you didn't answer a single one of them." That was your comment. Do you stand behind that?
Sure.
No, you stand behind that because I've answered every single one. Um, I just want you to confirm that I'm here to answer everything and it's been answered. Um,
Okay.
I don't want any more long emails. I mean, if you want to come on and talk again, you can shoot me an email saying I got you now. I got you, Bruce. You're screwed. So give me a link to a live stream and I'll do it. But I'm not doing emails back and forth forever. Um,
Fair
unless
enough.
it's something pleasant. Unlike those other ones.
A request, if I may.
Huh?
May I make a request?
Sure.
Um, I don't know, like if it would be possible, feasible, uh, but I would really enjoy it if you had Robin Underwood on as a guest.
I mean, I know Robin. I got it. I could call her, but
So do
um,
I.
yeah. I mean, I've
No,
talked to her many times. I don't know what we would talk about. It's going to be the same thing. And there's well, what does she have for me? What's she going to have? What's she going to say? Do you know her so well? I mean, I know her pretty well. What do you think she'll come at me with?
I have no idea. I have no
She'll
idea.
want
But
she'll want to know what the problems I had with the study were, and I already made the video. She can watch the video, but I was part of that thing very briefly. I got to see what was going on. I don't have to read about it in a piece of paper. I was there. I was there on several levels of it. It's not something I just heard about or read about or heard her presentations about. I was inside of it. So there's no like tricking me. I could have her on, but it just for me it just wouldn't be interesting. She has plenty of videos, but you can tell her to come on. You can tell her to call me. I won't initiate it. I like to talk with many different kinds of beekeepers, but she's a treating beekeeper who really is a proponent of treating bees and
something
is
like
for
me.
the commercial business. She's for the commercial best practices of commercial beekeeping. We're like it's apples and orangutans with me and her. There's really nothing. There's nothing to talk about, but I'll
Yeah,
try.
I just think that she's an amazing researcher. I don't know.
Okay, why?
Uh, well, simply because of not only because of her study, but several of the studies that her and Margarita Lopez Uribe have done there at the
Yeah,
lab.
she's another one.
You don't really approve of her
No,
much.
I like Margarita. We've talked many times also in person. She's told me she's given presentations and put my name up on the screen, talking about the stuff that I do, and yeah, I know Margarita too. But they're for the commercial beekeeping industry. That they could give, and they want hobbyists to do what commercial beekeepers to do. They want you to pretend like you're golden whatever sweet golden honey corporation. That's what they want you to have in your backyard. They don't. Yeah, it's apples and not even apples and oranges. Those are too closely related. But all right, well, yeah, we're getting way off subject.
Sorry, Bruce. I just thought that would be a great, great interview between you and her. I don't know.
Yeah, but I have no questions for them. That's the problem. I have no questions for them. If they had questions for me, that would be fine. But they would have to let me know they have questions for me. I have no interest in those research projects. They're just flawed and have faults all over the place, and they don't reflect actual, even hobbyist treatment-free beekeepers' experiences of anyone that I know. So it's just, yeah, I don't see it happening. I mean, I won't shut it down. I never duck or avoid anybody, but I don't have questions for them, So yeah, that's all I can say about that. But all right, thanks for coming on here.
Thanks.
I'll end this live. Paul Dosen, everybody. We'll probably see you in the comment sections of this video. Paul, you're gonna have to check back and chop everybody's head off that says something mean or whatever, because I'll be there.
No, I don't do that.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Bruce.